Let's get into today's episode of the podcast, the Mandy Meyer podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where we chat all about your health and fat loss, all about your goals when it comes to your health and fat loss expedition, and of course, your progress and how you can achieve that progress and results on this expedition of yours. As promised, I would be answering your questions which you have asked on some of the social media platforms. So that's exactly what I will be doing in this episode. But before I forget, and before you forget, my next 4-week challenge starts on the 8th of September and sign-ups open on the 4th of September. Be sure you get in there on the 4th of September because the last 4-week challenge sold out within 2 days. If you need any more information on that, the link is in the description. I've got the questions on this piece of paper, so let's start working through them. Working around an injury or a disease mentally and physically. The first thing I am going to say here is if you are injured, I'm not the one to be giving you advice for that. I'm a health and fat loss coach. I focus on and am qualified in helping you make more calculated nutritional choices for fat loss, as well as the creation of healthier habits. Number one, if you are injured, you need to seek professional help and guidance from a medical professional such as a physiotherapist or your orthopedic surgeon or a doctor for that matter. And I don't mean Dr. Google. The same goes for if you are battling with a disease. It is fundamental that you speak to your healthcare provider who knows what disease you are battling with to ask them for advice as to how you can move forward with physical activity, and to ask them for nutritional advice. This is why you have healthcare providers, physios, doctors, you name it. The professional who diagnoses you with X, Y, and Z, pick their brain, ask them. They need to give you advice based on how you can tackle health and fat loss. And then once you have your diagnosis and the do's and don'ts from your healthcare provider, you can then come to me and say to me, Mandy, I'm dealing with this injury, or Mandy, I'm dealing with this disease. And around that, we can formulate a plan. But I cannot just give you an answer on how to work around an injury or a disease if I have no idea what we are dealing with. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, mentally, let's say, for example, if you are injured or you are battling a chronic disease or a disease, that doesn't mean that the creation of healthier habits has to stop. There may be certain limitations because there are things that you can and can't do, but here's the big thing. Don't focus or fixate on the things that you can't do. Focus all your energy on the things that you can do. Let's say, for example, and just to reiterate, this is just a random example. You have a broken ankle. Cool, you can't walk, you can't get your daily steps in. But what can you focus on? What can you control? Can you continue drinking your water and stay hydrated? Can you continue eating 3 meals per day? Can you continue eating more protein and more vegetables and more fiber? And can you continue making more nutrient-dense choices? Of course you can, because you don't eat with your broken ankle. Again, it's so important to focus on what you can control because most likely, more often than not, there is far more in your control than what is out of your control. Now, I'm not going to touch on the disease part of it because I have no idea what you are dealing with. And it would just be irresponsible of me to give you advice to say, but you can still eat X, Y, and Z, or you can still exercise. I have no idea what disease you are dealing with. Therefore, I will not touch on that. The next question is, how do you deal with people that tell you that you are not going to lose any more weight or you are not going to lose weight? Well, I can tell you how I would deal with that, and then you can proceed with using that information or not. I would simply make it my mission to prove them wrong. It's as simple as that. When it comes to a weight loss expedition or a health and fat loss expedition, every single outsider, Brenda from accounts, Sally from the printer, will have something to say about you, your weight, your food choices, etc. Either you're going to absorb that information and you are going to let it get to you, or you are going to continue moving forward on a daily basis with creating consistency within your habits, knowing that what you are doing is for you and not for them. You're going to be like, screw you, Sally, and your printer too. Because you have no right to tell me that I can't lose any more weight. Oh, and you, Brenda from accounts, that goes for you too. And at the end of the day, what I would personally say to them if they said to me, you're not going to lose any more weight, my other comeback would be, well, it's not all about weight loss. It's about creating healthier habits. My blood pressure is always 118/69, Sally. What the fuck is yours? Oh, look at that. I mean, that's a joke. We shouldn't be joking about people's blood pressure, but still, at the end of the day, it's not all about weight loss. So you could have a very good comeback to them and say, well, I'm doing this for health purposes and not necessarily just for weight loss. You always got to be one step ahead of that Sally from the printer and Brenda from accounts, because they always think they are 10 steps ahead, them and their cabbage soup diets. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, you are doing it for you, and you are actually 10 steps ahead in the creation of healthier habits and health markers than what they are. Just remember that. I need to bring the paper closer because, as I'm getting older, I just need to bring the paper closer. I mean, you make with that information what you will. Building muscle and strength, how to navigate the calories to do this, and or the cycle between deficit and maintenance. It all seems a bit scary. Now, I totally understand that this can seem scary. So I'm going to break it down very simply. And for someone that is maybe not a beginner at starting on their health and fat loss expedition, this information might be a little bit too simple. But what I would say is, if you have a lot of body fat to lose, place yourself within a calorie deficit first, and make fat loss the goal whilst you are lifting weights in the gym. So your main goal would be fat loss, which will see you being in a calorie deficit. And then once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I've lost enough fat now, then you can be like, okay, push yourself up into a small surplus amount of calories, and then focus on building muscle. That is the simplest way of me explaining it. The reason for that is so that you are not chopping and changing between deficit, maintenance, surplus, etc. There is maybe a time and place for that, but not if you are starting out on your health and fat loss expedition. The next question is how to exercise past all the hurt. If it feels painful to get up, but you still want to achieve your goals. Again, this is something that I don't feel a generic answer is good enough for, because number one, I have no idea what is causing your pain. If it's something serious, you should not be pushing through the hurt. You should not be pushing through the pain. If the pain stems from DOMS, which is the delayed onset of muscle soreness, and it's not a physical injury, then you can always look at adding some light movement on the days where you are very sore, or you could look at pushing through those DOMS. Again, if it is DOMS and not physical pain that stems from an injury, for example. You ask how to exercise past all the hurt if you still want to achieve your goals. My question would be, what are your goals? Are your goals fat loss? Are your goals creating healthier habits? If that is the case, you don't need to be exercising to the point where you are in pain, or you don't need to be pushing through the pain. You can wait to recover if you are dealing with an injury whilst you are still focusing on all the other healthy habits that you can create along with your food choices. I know mentally it can be painful to eat broccoli. Physically, unless you're eating something very spiky, don't eat something very spiky. Physically, eating vegetables and nutrient-dense foods is not painful unless you're allergic to it. Don't eat foods that you are allergic to. I will say sorry that I can't answer this question properly because I don't know what is causing your pain. Again, it would be very irresponsible of me to say push through your pain. I am not saying that, especially because I don't know where that pain is stemming from. I am sensitive/allergic to salicylate. I think that's how you pronounce it. Found in aspirin, other meds and food. A constant battle to lose weight. Believe me, I have tried to speak to dietitians. They can't help. My piece of advice here is to go onto ChatGPT and put in the prompt of what foods contain salicylate, you know what I mean. And then put in a prompt of what foods don't. That is going to be your best starting point. Now, you have mentioned that you're sensitive/allergic to. You are going to need to figure out what foods contain a huge amount of it and what foods contain a very minuscule amount of it. Because if you are only sensitive to it, you might be more sensitive to foods that are higher in it. So if you can start off with a list of foods that don't contain it and foods that contain very little thereof, you can make that your starting point. And the reason why I say that is because now you can build a meal plan based off the foods that don't contain it or contain very little of it. And your goal with that meal plan will be to create a meal plan that puts you within a calorie deficit with foods that you can eat that you are not sensitive or allergic to. Your food choices might be very limited, but even with limited food choices, you can still place yourself within a calorie deficit. This is where you are going to have to put in the hard work. You are going to have to put in the groundwork. You are going to have to start off by figuring out what foods you can eat and what foods are not on the list of things to eat for you. You are then going to have to go into MyFitnessPal or Fat Secret or any food tracking app. And with those lists of foods that you can eat, you're going to have to start building a meal plan for yourself based on your calorie needs for the day. And of course, your calorie needs that place you in a calorie deficit for fat loss to take place. So yes, whilst it may be extremely difficult because there are a lot of limitations when it comes to foods that you can eat or foods that you are not overly sensitive to, it is still doable, but it is a lot more difficult for you as opposed to someone like myself that is not sensitive to foods or different food types or whatever the food contains. A very important thing to note here is that there is not one specific food that is best for fat loss. So if someone says, oh, but you need to eat pineapple on your meal plan for fat loss to take place, but you cannot eat it because you are sensitive to it or allergic to it, guess what? You leave that out of your meal plan and you add something to your meal plan that you can eat and that you enjoy, and fat loss can still take place. Like I said, hard work, groundwork is going to be tough, but once you have a meal plan set out for yourself, guess what? It's going to be super sustainable because you have created it for yourself based on what you can and can't eat. The last question that I'm going to answer is basically, I'm going through menopause. I would like some advice. I still have belly fat and wonder how to get rid of it. So when you go through menopause, there's a decrease or a decline in your estrogen levels. And basically because of that dictates as to where your body stores fat, or it could. And with a decline in estrogen levels, your body tends to store more fat around the belly or the midsection. Now, it's very important to note that this fat that is being stored around your belly, around your abdomen, has to come from somewhere, right? It's not the fact that there's a decrease in estrogen or an hormonal imbalance that immediately leads to fat gain. That fat gain comes from being within a calorie surplus. Where it is then stored is dictated by certain hormones, such as a decrease in estrogen or a potentially very high level of cortisol. But it's not like your body just says, oh, you're in menopause right now, cool, I'm just going to give you extra fat on your body. You still need to be over consuming calories, meaning you are in a calorie surplus, not a calorie deficit. And that is why fat gain takes place. Unfortunately, you cannot spot reduce certain areas on your body. What it's going to take to lose weight around certain areas of your body is for you to be in a consistent calorie deficit. Now, when you are in menopause, even in perimenopause, it's a lot more difficult to adhere to your calorie plan, to adhere to your exercise plan, because of all the symptoms that come with being in perimenopause or with being in menopause. And that is actually why weight gain takes place, is not because you've turned 40 or you've turned 50. It takes place because it becomes so much more difficult to adhere to a plan it becomes so much more difficult to create consistency because of all the symptoms that come with being in perimenopause or with being menopausal. As essentially at the end of the day, it's lifestyle factors, your actions and your behaviors that lead to fat gain. Obviously, because they lead to you being within a calorie surplus. The older we become as women, the more difficult it is to adhere to any plan because the lack of sleep, the fatigue, the drop of energy levels, the mood that is not great. And that's just me naming one or two of the very many symptoms out there. When you are walking around like a zombie, fatigued, tired, exhausted, when your mood has taken a dip, when your motivation has taken a dip, when you are not sleeping well, it is very difficult to adhere to your plan. It's very difficult to adhere to creating consistency within your calorie deficit. So yes, it becomes so much more difficult for fat loss to take place when you are in perimenopause or menopause because of the symptoms that come with the hormonal imbalance. But it's not the hormonal balance that is directly causing fat gain to take place. And it's so important that we understand that. It's so important that you understand that because so many people out there think that once they hit perimenopause or menopause, it's the end of the story for them. It doesn't have to be. Again, I know it is a lot more difficult because there's a lot more challenges. There's a lot more things that become speed bumps and speed hurdles on your health and fat loss expedition. And all of those affect your adherence. But I can tell you now that it is not impossible. You might just need to change your perspective, maybe change the rate that you want to lose weight at, and maybe change the mindset around this is no longer just about weight loss. Not that it has ever been, but now more so than ever, it is important that you focus on creating healthier habits, creating a healthier lifestyle without the main goal being fat loss or weight loss, because that will come. That will come if you continue working on consistently creating healthier habits. I'm not going to touch too much on that topic because if you scroll through all the episodes of this podcast or on the podcast platform where I host it, you will find that I have done many different episodes on cortisol, on female hormones, on tracking your menstrual cycle, how that affects your weight loss or your weight gain, your lifestyle factors, etc. All it's going to take is that you scroll through all of the episodes and actually find the ones that you want to listen to. Remember, don't forget there's a link to my challenge in the description. The challenge helps you focus on creating healthier habits over 4 weeks. Those healthier habits have been set up by myself. They're the habits that I know will help you stick to being within a calorie deficit. They're the habits that I know will help you create a healthier lifestyle. And I know they are the habits that are going to help you progress and see results on your health and fat loss expedition. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who knows that you have what it takes to be successful in creating a healthier lifestyle, Mandy.